Yeah. Hi. My name is Tomaž Zaman, and I come from Slovenia, which is the neighboring country to Slovenia. You might have heard about it. I love coming here. Croatia has such beautiful beaches, but Slovenia has higher GDP. No, I guess I'm never getting invited back here again. Anyway, today I'd like to talk about YouTube and how I believe it is one of, if not the last bastions of authenticity. For now. And why do I say that? Well, because if you've been paying attention at this conference at all, then everybody and their mom kept saying AI, AI, AI. And let's just say AI is not that good yet, which is why for now. Let me tell you a story. In 2009, me and my lovely wife got twin children, who are now 16-year-olds. And the issue we had is we needed a bigger place to stay in, right? So if there's anything I would like you to take from this talk is that Slovenia is shaped like a running chicken. You see it, right? So the orange circle is where Ljubljana, our capital, is. And guess where we moved with my wife? Here, in the middle of fucking nowhere. Can I say fuck here? Yeah? Okay, thank you. So we moved there, and the region, while being gorgeous nature-wise, if I said that it was underdeveloped career or IT-wise, which is where I'm coming from, would be an understatement. Like, there's nothing there in terms of IT. So I did the only thing I knew how to do is I looked online for work, right? And the first result on Google that I found was a platform called Elance. Who amongst of you have heard of Elance before? Please raise your hands. Nobody. Great. So Elance has since merged with another company, similar business model that is now, so the company was then called Odesk, and now together they're called Upwork. So if you're a remote person that needs to make money online, you sign up for Upwork, right? And do the stuff, whatever is required of you. However, these online outsourcing services had an issue, and that issue was pretty much a non-existent quality control, right? So after 2 years or so of working with a client that I found on Elance, I said, listen, would you be down and we make a version of Elance ourselves? And he said, sure, can you develop it? And yeah, I was like, yeah, I can. I asked him, can you lead it, as in do the, marketing, business development, that kind of shit that us developers suck at, right? And he said, sure. So we founded a company called Codable. Now, Codable came with a twist, and that twist was on purpose. Why? Because we were about to compete with Elance, who at the time was a Silicon Valley funded behemoth. I think they raised 400 million or something. And we were just a couple of guys, one from Slovenia, the other from Denmark. So what we decided is we're going to pick a niche, and that niche was WordPress. And I can safely say that Codable is, to this day, the world's leading WordPress outsourcing platform. However, a certain global event came to Europe in 2020, and much like with everybody else, I too had a lot of free time available, and I spent some of that free time working on an introspective, and came to the conclusion that I really, really have nothing else to give to the company, right? We founded it in 2013, so at that point it was 7, almost 8 years, and as a developer, I kind of exhausted myself. I didn't want to become a manager. In fact, if there were Oscars for lousiest manager, I would probably win that award because I suck at management. I'm a developer, a maker, a builder, right? So I decided it's time to move on. So in April of 2022, I well, we spoke before that. I quit the company. A year before that, I told my partner during the COVID introspective, if you will, and I offered him my shares and some other parties involved, and we parted ways. On the right side here, you see that is my partner, Per. In the middle is our attorney, who made sure we kept laughing after this divorce. And on the left, it's me. Now, I know what you might be thinking right now. Tomaž, you got fat. And yes, I know, shut up. So the one thing I lost, and the one thing that nobody, and I mean nobody, tells you happens when you sell your company is you lose your fucking purpose. In a professional sense, that is, right? Everybody just goes like, look at me, I sold the company, I have a successful exit, blah, 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 blah. But nobody says, what now? What do I do now, right? And as the era that we were in during COVID and whatnot, I kind of fell into the mechanical keyboards hobby. So I decided, you know what, I'll make my own keyboard. And I did, and what you see on the picture here is my own keyboard. This is a working keyboard. It has a PCB inside. It weighs 3.5 kilograms because the whole enclosure is made out of aluminum, anodized aluminum. And I still believe to this day that this is the best keyboard materials-wise you can buy on the market. Well, you can't buy them anymore, but we'll get there. But there was one thing missing from the keyboard, or one skill set that I do not have that keyboards need, obviously, is a PCB. So I reached out to this gentleman, Aljaž Titorić. He's a Slovenian otherwise, but lives in the Netherlands. And I found him on Instagram, and I saw he works on PCBs. And I said, listen, you want to do a keyboard for me? And he goes, sure. So he developed and designed a PCB for my keyboard as a contractor at the time, right? And this is then how many we sold, because I did a very, very, very crucial mistake. So because I had some cash on hand due to sale of my previous company, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do this in stealth mode, right? People that do stuff in stealth mode are fucking cool, are they not? Well, at least I thought at the time. But then, when we actually released the keyboards, when I paid out of my own pocket to manufacture a bunch of them and try to sell them, this is how many we sold in the first month. Or the second, or almost any other for that matter. We did sell a couple, but not nearly enough, right? So I was back to square one, and I decided, you know what? Because I like to teach people, always have. I actually studied to be a physics teacher, but I dropped out because it was too boring. And I was like, okay, I'm just gonna make a YouTube channel, and on this channel I'm gonna just, post random shit, right? And post random shit I did until end of 2023. So it was January 19th, and I think it's pretty obvious what happened. This is my subscriber count screenshot taken last week, and you see how the graph kind of turned from 0 to something, let's say, right? And what happened that day is I published a video in which I explained how I hacked my ISP router. Because you probably all agree that ISP routers suck for the most part, right? The ones you all got from your ISPs, they all suck equally, right? But you don't think about them too much, well, as long as Wi-Fi is working, right? Because if it goes out, then you're frustrated even more so. And this video, to this day, has 2 million views and has been for a year or more the main driver of traffic to the channel. Now, if there's a couple of things, because I speak to a lot of people that say, hey, our company or I personally want to do a YouTube channel, what would you recommend, right? So these are some initial things that I always point out immediately, right? The first thing is that audio matters. You need to hear people what they say. If you don't, then you're out of the door, right? So audio, I would say, is number one. Then come the lights, because the lights dictate how you look, even if the camera is a bit crappy or you're shooting with your phone or whatever, right? The next thing that is very important is that it's told that a video is done as a story, because, stories have propelled civilization forward since, the Stone Age, or whenever we came out of the water so to speak. And the last thing I say, buy a teleprompter. I'm not an English speaker, as in I'm not a native English speaker. So I would always write my script and read it off a teleprompter. Do you guys know what a teleprompter is? Yeah? So it's the thing that kind of shows text in front of the camera that you read off of, right? And this allowed me to much more streamline my media production because I just get to read the script that I write, and it lowers my editing time as well, right? And the most important takeaway from for today, I'd say, that YouTube is a sales channel. YouTube allows us to sell something, an idea, myself as a brand, as a personality, as a product I have to sell. YouTube is one of the strongest sales channels, and we'll get to why soon. Now, when I saw my router hacking video, I realized one thing, and that thing was that people liked content about routers. It seems it was a niche that didn't or wasn't covered that well. So I was like, okay, there's something here. I will explore it further, right? And because I come from aluminum background, and that I mean in a quite literal sense, so my dad owned an aluminum foundry, so I know a thing or two about the material. I was like, okay, because everybody's frustrated, let's do this. I'll produce an enclosure, and this is a render of that enclosure, and we will produce it, and then we'll buy a PCB and insert it, and we'll sell it as a final product, right? But that idea had a big problem. I couldn't find a great PCB, or let's say financially accessible. Everything was so expensive. So I said, fuck it. I'll make my own PCB. And because I already knew Aljaž, so the guy that helped me with the keyboard PCB, I said, listen, dude, let's make a router. And he was like, sure, let's do it, right? And after I shared this story, that was just story, wishful thinking, if you will, at that point, this happened. This is a screenshot. I just blurred out some, well, sensitive data, private data. This is a real email that I got that says, my name is X, and I own a company based in the UK. I've been watching your progress, and I would like to initially invest £100,000 into the project. Now, this has all the, how do you call it, markers of spam initially, right? But I replied, and one thing led to another, and 10 days after, this gentleman actually flew to Slovenia and later on invested twice the amount of what he's offering here. And along with some of my friends from my personal network, we raised $300,000 to develop my dream router that I was talking about, but have not yet built at that point. Like, I had nothing really. But that 300,000 was enough for me to get to this stage. This is the prototype PCB. The photo, this is a photo, not a render, was taken in February of this year, and we basically burned through all the 300,000 that we raised, right? To develop this, and we raised it for this, right? But this is where kinda trouble began. I knew we were low on money, so I was like, okay, Tomaž, now it's really time for you to start fundraising. So, and here's where I'll get in trouble with the local investors, most likely, if they see this. I pitched, because I'm a patriot by, how do you call it, not by politics, but by economics, yeah. So I wanted the router to be manufactured in Slovenia or in the region, and I wanted feet to be manufactured in the region and enclosures, and however many things I can, I would like to have manufactured either in Slovenia or close by. And there's multiple reasons. First, if I can help lift the local economy, perfect, right? And second, if I have all the manufacturers close by physically, in case there's anything wrong, I can just simply drive there and solve the issue, rather than, you know, in case things are manufactured in China, then it's this months-long ping pong of debugging and communication and shipping and whatnot, right? And the same goes for investors, for VCs. I first reached out to a bunch of investors from the region, and despite what they'll have you believe, they don't find hardware that sexy, right? They would say, wow, this is good, you have traction, you have whatnot, right? But it's hardware. So it's going to be a no from me. So I did what I knew how to do. I made a YouTube video about it. And this video was seen by an ex-Google employee who reached out and said, listen, Tomaž, I see what you're doing. I believe in you. I'd like to invest $500,000. And I'm like, oh, yeah, cool. So I reached out. The first thing he asked, he said, do you have a financial plan? And I said, well, kinda, but it's kind of a lousy one. Would you take time, like an hour, and make one with me? And he was like, sure, fine. So we jumped on a call. The guy lives in San Francisco. So we jumped on a call, opened a blank spreadsheet, and started creating a financial plan for 2025 and 2026. And at the end of this call, he said, I believe in this, what we've just written down. This is perfect. How do we proceed? So the next day, I contacted my lawyers to prepare the investment contract, and he wired the money in like 14 days or so, right? Now, this is the final version of what we call the development kits. Development kits are basically a router that is an overkill, right? This is an overkill router that has everything and everything possible. And why did we decide this? Because the audience on YouTube said they want something overkill that they can play with by themselves. Basically, think of it as a networking Raspberry Pi of sorts, right? And we managed to pre-sell 950 units. Because if there's one other thing that you've heard here from VCs is sell, 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 build. Well, we started selling routers when basically before we got the first investment, and we started collecting $100 reservation fees, which are fully refundable. And in the months since, I think it was up in March, we pre-sold 950 routers. So people have already wired almost 100K for this purpose. Now, of course, the big question I think here is why? As in, I had nothing, I'm no one really. I just have a YouTube channel, or just happen to have a YouTube channel. So what is it that made people trust me enough to wire and support this, to wire their money and support this project? And I honestly think because I'm authentic, what you see here, this is who I am. There's no bullshit. You know, if I fuck up, I'll say I fucked up. If I'm worried about stuff, I'll say I'm worried about stuff, right? And as I said earlier, I think I have some capacity to tell stories, and stories also sell, right? Now, as a speaker, at this point, I should say thank you for coming to my talk, right? But as a YouTuber, I'll say like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you.